I remember the first time I saw the number written out all the way, not the balance, not the interest rate, but the total amount I'd pay if I just kept doing what I was doing. It was something like a $6,000 balance quietly turning into almost $11,000 over time. And my first reaction wasn't panic, it was disbelief. It felt fake. Like one of those exaggerated numbers people throw around online to scare you. So I did the math again. Same inputs, different calculator, same result. What got to me wasn't even how big the number was. It was how boring the path to it felt. $25 here, $32 there, every month neatly handled. No missed payments, no warnings. No moment where anything felt out of control. Just time doing what time does best. Stretching something small until it isn't. And I remember sitting there thinking that I didn't actually buy $11,000 of stuff. I bought 6. The rest just happened slowly while I wasn't paying attention. Minimum payments feel good in a very specific, quiet way. Not exciting, not relieving like extra money, but like taking off shoes that were just a little too tight at the end of a long day. You make the payment. The notification disappears. The account looks handled. There's this subtle permission baked into it. Permission to stop thinking. Permission to say that you did what you were supposed to do. I like that feeling more than I wanted to admit, especially on months when everything already felt heavy. Work dragged. Groceries cost more than I remembered. Gas crept up again. Minimum payments fit perfectly into that mental state because they didn't ask anything extra from me. They didn't force a decision, they just said, you're fine for now. And for now is a powerful phrase when you're tired. I didn't see it as avoiding anything. I told myself I was being reasonable, even responsible. It took a while to notice that the stress never actually went away. It just moved somewhere quieter and waited. The first card where I only paid the minimum was supposed to be temporary. I remember saying that word out loud like it mattered, just for a month or two. Get through the stretch. Let things calm down. And nothing dramatic happened when those 2 months passed. The balance didn't yell at me. The card didn't shut off. Life didn't collapse. So the phrase quietly updated itself. A month or two turned into the rest of the year, then into background behavior. The weird part is I still thought of myself as someone working on it, even while the balance barely moved, even while interest quietly showed up like a monthly subscription I never signed up for. Looking back, that's the part that gets me. Not the debt itself, but how easily I let time decide things for me, while I told myself I was still in control. There was a point where I noticed a balance hovering around the same number month after month, about $3,200. I'd pay the minimum, sometimes a little more. Then I'd glance at the statement the next month and feel like nothing had changed. At first I assumed I was misremembering, like when you think your gas tank should be fuller than it is, but it kept happening. Payment went in. Balance barely budged. That's when it hit me that the problem wasn't what I bought anymore. The problem was time. Time plus interest plus patience. The kind of patience that doesn't feel like patience at all. It feels like endurance, like holding something heavy, just long enough that your arms go numb and you stop noticing the strain. Minimum payments have a way of turning debt into background noise. At first, you hear it clearly. Every purchase echoes. Every statement feels loud, but anything constant eventually fades. Like a hum, you stop noticing until it's gone. The balance just becomes part of the scenery. Something that exists alongside rent and utilities and phone bills. Not urgent, just there. I didn't wake up stressed about it most days, which felt like proof that things were fine. But stress doesn't always announce itself that way. Sometimes it shows up as being a little more tired than usual, a little more irritable, a little quicker to justify small treats, because everything already feels heavy. That's the version I lived with for a long time. Quiet, manageable, expensive in ways I couldn't see yet. One night, I actually did the math I'd been avoiding. Nothing fancy, just the interest I'd paid in a year compared to what I'd originally put on the card. It came out to a few $100s. Not catastrophic, but also not nothing. And when I stretched that out over a few years, the number got awkward to say out loud. This was money spent on absolutely nothing. No meals, no convenience, no memories, just the cost of waiting. That's when it felt embarrassing in a very specific way, not shame. More like realizing you've been tipping someone every month without knowing why. I wasn't reckless. I wasn't missing payments. I was just quietly paying for time and calling it normal. I used to tell myself that never missing a payment meant I was doing it right. That was my definition of responsible. Bills paid, boxes checked. No late fees. And by that standard, I was nailing it. The problem is that definition was incredibly narrow. It didn't include progress. It didn't include momentum. It just included compliance. I followed the rules exactly as written and somehow still felt stuck. That's a strange feeling. Like showing up every day and realizing you're standing in the same place. I defended that system for a long time because it let me feel competent without having to feel uncomfortable. And at the time, that felt like a fair trade. Credit card statements are designed to look calm, clean fonts, neat columns, reassuring language. They don't look like something that's supposed to stress you out. They look like something that's under control. I'd open mine late at night, skim it, make the payment, and close it again. The experience felt contained, almost soothing. But calm presentation doesn't mean calm reality. The tension just wasn't visual, it lived somewhere else. In the way future months already felt spoken for. In the way extra money never really felt extra. The statement didn't lie to me. It just didn't tell the whole story. And I didn't ask it to. There was a stretch where I avoided doing the full math because it felt heavy after work. I'd tell myself I'd look at it on the weekend, then the weekend would come and go. This is the part I didn't want to look at first because it meant admitting that the stress I felt wasn't random. It had a shape, a source, and I had participated in building it. That realization didn't hit like panic. It landed more like a slow exhale, like realizing the room had been stuffy for a long time and you just hadn't noticed. I wasn't angry at myself. I was tired of pretending I didn't know where the pressure was coming from. Once I had more than one card, the minimum payment started to blend together. 30 here, 40 there, none of them scary on their own. Together, they became a chunk of my monthly life that I couldn't move. They didn't feel dangerous because nothing bad was happening, but they quietly narrowed my options. Less room for surprises, less flexibility when something small went wrong. It's strange how stress compounds without getting louder. It just gets wider. It takes up more space. And you don't notice until you try to move and realize you can't without bumping into it. Minimum payments don't remove stress. They delay it. And delayed stress doesn't disappear. It just waits for quieter moments to show up. For me, it showed up in grocery aisles, in hesitation over small purchases, and that low-level guilt that didn't make sense at the time. I wasn't overspending anymore. I wasn't doing anything dramatic. But something always felt slightly off, like I was running just a little behind no matter how hard I tried. It took a while to connect that feeling back to those neat little minimums I kept paying every month. They were doing their job perfectly, just not the job I thought they were doing. I remember standing in a grocery store debating between two brands because one was $2 cheaper, while carrying interest that cost me more than that every week. That contradiction didn't hit me right away. At the time, it felt responsible, careful, but later it started to feel strange, like tightening a screw on one end while ignoring a leak on the other. I wasn't wrong for trying to save money. It just wasn't addressing the thing quietly draining it. And because the drain was familiar, it didn't feel urgent. Familiar problems rarely do. What minimum payments really took from me wasn't money first. It was flexibility. The ability to imagine a month that felt open. Every month already had a portion spoken for before it started. That does something subtle to how you think. You stop planning forward. You start managing around. I didn't notice when that shift happened. I just noticed later that I felt boxed in more often than not. Like every decision had to be weighed against something invisible but heavy. And that weight never made a sound. At one point, I ran another simple calculation. If I kept paying what I was paying, how long would this actually take? The answer was years. Not a dramatic number, just long enough to feel absurd. Long enough that future versions of me were already involved. That's when the timeline itself became uncomfortable. I wasn't borrowing from next month anymore. I was borrowing from whole chapters of my life, and I'd done it in such small pieces that it never felt like a choice. Part of why I defended minimum payments for so long is because everyone around me did the same thing. It felt normal, ordinary, like complaining about traffic. Shared frustration without shared solutions. When something is common, it stops feeling questionable. It just feels like part of adulthood. Bills, balances, payments that never quite end. I blended into that easily, and blending in felt safer than standing out, even if standing out might have meant asking harder questions. Debt stress doesn't show up neatly on a calendar. There's no due date for the anxiety itself. It leaks into mood, into patience, into sleep. I didn't lie awake thinking about interest rates. I lay awake thinking about random things and feeling inexplicably tired. That's what made it hard to trace. The cause and effect weren't close together. They were spread out, softened by time, easy to ignore. I remember snapping at someone once over something small and realizing later it wasn't about that at all. It was about feeling cornered in ways I couldn't articulate. Money does that. It turns into emotional static, and minimum payments kept that static at a steady volume. Never loud enough to force action. Never quiet enough to forget. Minimum payments gave me the illusion of control. A sense that things were handled because something was happening. Money was moving. Accounts were active. But control and progress aren't the same thing. Control can be still. Progress can be uncomfortable. I chose stillness without realizing it. And stillness felt like relief until it didn't. Long-term stress doesn't knock. It moves in quietly and rearranges things while you're busy. You don't notice until you look around and nothing feels spacious anymore. That's what those minimum payments did. They didn't ruin anything. They just narrowed it, month by month, until the narrowing itself felt normal. Sometimes I picture myself late at night, kitchen quiet, statement open, house dark, everyone else asleep. The balance is still there. Not much different than last month. I'm not panicking, I'm just looking, sitting with it, letting it exist without closing the tab right away. The room feels still. The number feels heavy. And for once, I don't rush to make it disappear.